Good afternoon. This is RCB News, and I am Ryan Boland. I want to get right down to the news at hand. I'm going to be reading an article from the DailyWire. I'm going to read it in its entirety. The article is pretty short, pretty brief, so I'm going to be reading it in its entirety. And it's in reference to Dave Chappelle's response to the backlash that he's been getting from the transgender community over the supposed jokes that he made in reference to the transgender community. So I'm going to read the entire article, and then I'm going to give you my spin and my opinion on what I believe that this is all about. And it says, it's entitled, Dave Chappelle Fires Back at Netflix Trans Activist. Quote, I said what I said, end quote. You are not summing me. Dave Chappelle is breaking his silence about the Netflix walkout over his comedy special, The Closer, and he's not mincing any words. In a new video released Monday on Instagram, Chappelle began by saying, I want everyone in this audience to know that even though the media frames it that it's me versus that community, that is not what it is. He then added that he doesn't blame the LGBTQ community at large for the uproar. This has nothing to do with them. It's about corporate interests and what I can say and what I cannot say, he said. Now, me personally, I don't believe it's just about corporate interests, but I'm going to talk about that at the end of this article. For the record, and I need you to know this, everyone I know from that community has been loving and supporting. So I don't know what all this nonsense is about. During the video that was part of a live performance he gave in Nashville, he said he would be happy to meet with trans Netflix employees, but added they will have to meet his terms. You are not summing me. I am not bending to anyone's demands, he said. Bravo to Dave. True to form, the 48-year-old's demands showcased his characteristic sharp humor. First of all, you cannot come if you have not watched my special from beginning to end, he said. You must come to a place of my choosing at a time of my choosing. And thirdly, you must admit that Hannah Gadsby is not funny. Gadsby is a lesbian comic whose critically acclaimed Netflix special, Nanette, I believe that's what it means, it's pronounced. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nanette has been described as more a spoken word performance than stand-up. Saturday Night Live's Michael Shee previously came under fire for seeming to imply that Gadsby doesn't actually do comedy. Chappelle also said that he doesn't know what he and the disgruntled employees would talk about. It's been said in the press that I was invited to speak with transgender employees at Netflix and I refused. That is not true. If they had invited me, I would have accepted, although I am confused about what we are speaking about. I said what I said, and boy, I heard what you said. My God, how could I not? You said you wanted a safe working environment at Netflix. Well, it seems like I'm the only one who can't go to the office anymore. Chappelle finished by saying, you cannot have this conversation and exclude my voice from it. That is only fair. You have to answer the question, am I canceled or not? Now let's go. As the Daily Wire previously reported, though the walkout received extensive media coverage and was predicted to draw thousands of pro-trans protesters eager to show their displeasure with Netflix, in the end, only a few dozen activists showed up. Isn't that interesting? That's the end of that article right there. But bravo to Dave Chappelle for standing up against this assault against him. And I just wanted to give my spin on it. First, I wanted to say, in reference to, he said this is about corporate interests. I believe that's part of the situation, but I don't believe that's the entirety. I believe that, as I oftentimes say in my videos, I believe that this is a Marxist attempt to divide the country and to divide the people, to shut down all dissenting voices that don't agree with the leftist agenda. If you crack a joke about them, they get upset. But I believe that a lot of these activists, whether they're feminists, whether they're transgender, whether they're gay, or whatever the case may be, I believe that, excuse me, a lot of these activists are paid to do what they do. Alicia Milano, she decided to become a leftist activist. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is my opinion, okay, is that this was during, I think, the year 2020, and she decided to become a leftist activist. And I believe, in my opinion, that the reason why she decided to do that wasn't so much because she really believed in the leftist ideology, but because she knew that in order to be relevant and in order to make money, she would have to do something. She wasn't acting, far as I know, and a lot of those actors weren't acting. A lot of them had YouTube channels and whatever they was doing with millions of subscribers because they knew that the only way they was going to become stay on top and make money was to do something that other people were doing. You couldn't really do a lot of acting because everything was shut down. So I believe, in my opinion, that Alicia Milano decided to become a leftist activist to get paid. Well, it's the same thing here. I think a lot of these leftist activists and so forth are getting paid to do what they do. They're getting paid to push the leftist or the far leftist agenda in order to bring this country to where they want it to be. I believe that a lot of these people are tools of the true Marxist insurgents that control our local government, state government, and federal government. And that they have an agenda and that they have a goal, and that's to dismantle and confuse and demoralize and destabilize the society in order to rebuild it again into a communist state. That's what I believe the ultimate goal is. I'm going to keep pushing that and pushing that and pushing that. When you know the enemy, you know how to push against it. So when I hear these type of things going on, it's not a shock to me. It's not a shock to me personally, because I believe, based on my studies, I know what's going on. Now, that may sound arrogant, and I hope I'm not being arrogant, because I'm nothing without God. Okay. You know, I am who I am by the grace of God. I'm no better than anybody else. I don't know better than anybody else, but I do like to study. I do like to read, and I believe it's important to read. And I believe it's important to study as much as you possibly can to understand what's going on. The books that I study and the books that I read, they're well documented. And it's hard for me to argue against something that's well documented. So I believe that a lot of this stuff that Dave Chappelle is dealing with is not merely corporate interests. I believe that it's a Marxist attempt. A lot of these corporate people in the corporate society, a lot of these board directors and board members, and a lot of these business tycoons are communists and socialists and Marxist supporters and sympathizers. They believe in this ideology, so they push it. It's everywhere. It's in the news media, politics, entertainment. It's everywhere. A lot of these people are sympathizers. They sympathize with that ideology, and so they put it in their movies, their music, then on the news. Whatever worldview you have, you live that worldview out. You speak that worldview. You think that worldview. You feel that worldview. And this is what I believe is happening. But bravo to Dave Chappelle for standing against this. The enemy is going to keep pushing. They want to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And you know what's kind of comical is at the end of the article it stated that it was the pro-trans individuals that were supposed to be activists and supposed to come and protest. Only a few dozen showed up. So that goes to show you that it's not as intensive as people think it is. Who's stirring these people up? You watch a lot of these comedy shows and stuff, man, it's hard. It's so hard nowadays. It's so hard for comedians, and that should be a whole nother video, but I want to make a statement about this. And I've been reading up and studying up on this. It's so hard for comedians to be comedians, to be funny. If Eddie Murphy, people like Eddie Murphy, particularly Eddie Murphy, he was good, particularly with during the 80s. With what was the name of that comedy? Delirious, and then Raw. Man, if he had made something like that today, boy, the community, the LGBT and pro would be all over him like flies on doo-doo. And I believe, from what I understand, they may have spoke out against him then. But as one commentator said, comedy always is daring. Comedy always is pushes the limits. True comedy has a message, but it's also funny. You have something. Dave Chappelle is one of those comedians that let's just put it like this. Dave Chappelle is one of those comedians that he's funny as what, but he also makes you think. And the problem with a lot of these transgender people is they, for whatever, not all of them, let me take the back, because I'm not attacking them. But the problem with, I just say it this way, this hypersensitivity among a lot of transgenders, I believe, is provoked by the higher ups, by the media, constantly pushing this, we need to protect you, and you're breeding soft-minded people, what we call on the conservative side snowflakes. You know what a snowflake is? Think about a snowflake. A snowflake is just so soft, it's beautiful, but you blow on it and it just fall apart. It melts on your tongue. Blue is, has no substance. It has nothing to really keep it together. And that's what we're producing. And I believe a lot of these transgenders and other people from these communities have been softened to the point where they can't even take a joke. And as I said earlier, if Eddie Murphy was alive today, if it was making a stand-up comedy like he did back in the 80s, man, they'd be all over him. But back then, people laughed it off. It was a joke. It was a joke. None of these jokes, from what in my experience and observations, I have not seen these kind of jokes having any detrimental effect on people that live that kind of life. And you got to understand, comedians, particularly people like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle and others, they crack on and joke on and prank on all kinds of different races and ethnic. With Dave Chappelle, he tends to be a little more between black and white, but he does both. He does white and the blacks. Eddie Murphy did the same thing. Richard Pryor, Red Fox, they cracked on all the different races because it's comedy. And we get into a point where comedians can't even crack jokes. And as I said earlier, this goes back to the Marxist insurgents who want to silence any dissenting voices. If you disagree with their agenda, whether you cracking jokes, whether you on whatever the case may be, if you cracking jokes, if it's in politics, if it's in films, if you say anything negative against the agenda that they're pushing, they're going to come against you. It's all about silencing your freedom of speech. That's what it all comes down to. And that's one of the ways in which communist insurgents take control of a country. They take control of a country by shutting all dissenting voices down. But bravo once again to Dave Chappelle. I hope he continues to stand up against this and go forward and be the comedian and the funny, ultra funny comedian that he actually is. I love Dave Chappelle. He cracks me up. The show, Dave Chappelle show, used to come on. Used to have. I couldn't handle that. I couldn't handle that show. It was too funny. Now that's saying something when it's something so funny you can't handle it. But I love him. God bless him, and I hope he stays strong. What are you guys' opinion on this? What do you think about? I didn't see the comedian. I didn't see the show. I didn't see the special. So I can't say anything about the special or what exactly he said. But I'm not commenting on that. I'm commenting on this article and what I think is going on. So what do you guys think? What do you think about this? Do you think Dave Chappelle is doing the right thing by standing up against this? Do you think he's being offensive? If you saw the show, do you think he's was offensive for what he said? Do you think it's going to cause damage? What do you think? You agree or disagree? Put it in the comment box below. Let's get engaged in a conversation here about this whole situation. If you like this video, press the like button, share this video, and subscribe to this channel. God bless you all, and see you again on RCB News.